everyone, and welcome back to Most Def Jeff. Today I want to talk to you about something a bit reflective and introspective. I want to talk to you about how I started riding and what it's like to ride like me. I think that I have touched on this subject in a few different videos because, of course, it's my reality, so I have no problem sharing it with you all. But I don't think that I've taken a really deep dive into it and just focused on talking about that for an entire video. But I think I'm ready to do that now. I got a request from someone about sharing my story a little bit more with everyone, so I'm happy to do it. That's, after all, why I made this channel. Oh, I think I did touch on this a little bit in my 2023 video. 2022 in review. But anyway, so to get right down to it, why did I want to ride a motorcycle in the first place? When I was a teenager, I had a boyfriend who had a motorcycle, and I would ride along as a pillion, as his little plus one, and I had no problem doing it. I was happy doing it. Anyway, I was my boyfriend's plus one, and I was happy to be on the back of his bike. I would go for weekend rides with him sometimes, but it never occurred to me to ever want to be in the driver's seat, as it were. I told myself very early on that there were so many things that I couldn't do because I don't have a left hand, and so I decided that motorcycling was definitely something that I couldn't do. And back then, pickings for electric bikes or bikes like the DCT were very slim or non-existent. So I really wasn't at a time in my life to ride a motorcycle, and the market wasn't at a point where it could give access to someone like me to ride a bike. So that was fine with me. And then fast forward to the pandemic, oddly enough, when so much stuff was happening, and of course we were all trapped inside our houses and looking for a way to cope, really. And I do have to mention that I'm incredibly lucky that I didn't have anyone in my family or circle who was extremely adversely affected by the pandemic. When the pandemic hit, I was taking stock of my life and trying to figure out what exactly I wanted out of it and how to cope. And just thinking about things that I've always wanted to do, and I always told myself no, and now was a time for me to learn and grow as a person, and just say yes to myself and just push my limits. I've heard no a lot in my life, and I've also been the one to tell me no. I'll say that the person telling me no the most in my life has been me. I decided that I needed to start telling myself yes. And so one of the things on my list was learning how to ride a motorcycle. And so in 2020, October-ish, 2020, I decided I was going to take a class because I had no idea what to do, where to start. And so I called around a couple places, and the very first place I called, I told them my situation, and they're like, "Oh, honey, you can't ride a motorcycle. You should ride a scooter." And I wouldn't know until later that riding a scooter was also not an option for me because you control both the front and back brakes with hand levers. That wasn't going to be an option for me anyway. And so I got a little discouraged, and by a little, I mean a lot. I backed off for about a year, actually, and I put it out of my mind, and I thought, well, I guess that avenue's closed to me. I'm going to try other things that I've always wanted to do and just see how that goes. So in October, September, I'll say August 2021, I decided, you know what, enough is enough. I told myself I was going to say yes to myself and see how many people also say yes to me. So I called around a couple more places, and then I finally landed on the MSF course, Motorcycle Safety Foundation, school that was offering that course in Colorado. And they're like, yes, we'll figure out how to make it work. and they actually had an electric bike, so I didn't have to learn on a scooter after all. They had an electric bike that I could learn to ride on, and so I was like, oh my gosh, I'm actually gonna do this. I'm gonna do this. Yes, sign me up. And so the next day, I was in the MSF course, scared. I wasn't scared. I was scared. Scared in the I'm about to go on a roller coaster ride kind of way, and not scared as in the I am terrified that I am legit going to die and I'm going home. I was nervous and excited and cautiously optimistic, and I took the MSF course, and 2 days later I passed the first try. Yeah, I can say that I've definitely been learning and growing, and getting over that initial hurdle of just, can I even do this? Is this even a possibility for me? That hurdle was the biggest one. And from there, so the biggest hurdle was just overcoming my own limitations that I was putting on myself. It wasn't my physical limitations, it was my mental limitation. I just didn't think that I could do it. And then when I told myself, you know what, let's just try it and see if I can, then it turns out I can do it. I got my certificate. I passed my MSF course in October. I got the little endorsement on my license in November. And then around Thanksgiving-ish, I got my motorcycle. It was a day to be thankful because I got my motorcycle. And I have been riding around giddy and happy ever since. It definitely isn't without trials and tribulations. I think like any other beginner rider, I was absolutely terrified the first, 10, 20 hours that I put on my bike. And mind you, the electric bike that I was on was, maybe 250, 300 pounds. It was a 0S, so not a very big bike. And then of course I bought this bike, the 21 1100 Rebel DCT, sight unseen. I wouldn't recommend that, but during the pandemic this bike was in very, very short supply. When I bought it, there were only 2 in the entire state of Colorado, so I snagged it. But I was terrified of my bike because it's a biggin'. And it took a lot for me to learn how to handle it. And I'm still learning how to handle it. I'm not saying that I'm an expert or anything. This is still a big bike, and it still commands a healthy amount of respect for me. And I'm willing to give it all the respect that it deserves. Because Rosa the Rebel is my wonderful, beautiful bike, and she has treated me so well. And I hope that I can treat her the same way. Oh, I need to get gas soon. Uh-oh. Oh, look at that view. It's pretty. So yeah, that is my origin story. That's how I started riding. And I know that I talked about this a little bit. Maybe it was in snippets. Maybe it was a blog. Maybe it was a video that I left on the cutting room floor. The truth is, I don't think that my story is drastically different from others who are learning how to ride a motorcycle. It's really all about having the confidence in yourself to be able to tackle something new. And yeah, I have that extra limitation of not having a left hand, and that does limit me in some things that I probably don't want to admit, but riding a motorcycle is not one of those things. I think that I'm fairly successful in being able to ride, and I am happy to do it. I'm happy to be out here, and I am also happy to serve as, I don't want to say an example, but serve as someone who can tell others who are like me that they can also do this if they want to, and if they believe in themselves, and of course if they're being safe. If there are, I cannot be the one to tell you to do anything or not to do anything. You have to know yourself. You have to know what you want, what you can do, what you're capable of, and just what you're ready to commit to. So for me, my story, it worked out that I can ride a motorcycle. and I'm only speaking for myself.